we are on our next panel discussion. Well, for the cybersecurity panel discussion, future of AI in cybersecurity amidst COVID-19. Well, while the world is focusing on the health and economic threat posed by COVID-19, cybercriminals around the world undoubtedly are capitalizing this crisis. This section will look at adopting intelligent tools like AI and machine learning to help detect cybersecurity threats and anomalies, prompting to thwart attacks. Well, in this current panel discussion, we're looking at using AI tools, integrating machine learning into firewalls, identifying the origin of cyber attacks, using RPA bots to automate rule-based tasks, and monitor and analyze mobile endpoints for cyber threats. Well, for this panel discussion, we've got our panelist, Shadab Siddiqui, the CISO of Hotstar. Well, Shadab has built and led Black Ops teams, information security teams as a specialist with unicorns like Ola, Flipkart, and large-scale internet firms like Adobe. An engineer by heart with out-of-the-box thinking, he's somebody who's bootstrapped the security engineering team multiple times from scratch. We're also joined by Sakshi Vidur, the head of information security, Yum Brands. Well, Sakshi is an accomplished global technology risk management leader with 18 plus years of experience. In her current role, she works across global region markets and franchisees in Asia to ensure the global cybersecurity posture is well understood and effectively implemented. We're also joined by Ashton, the CISO of Natwest Group. Well, Ashton's experience spans almost 2 decades in the financial services sector, from technology project management and leadership roles. In his dual role as CISO and CAO, he oversees the business strategy, operational planning, regulatory developments, risk and control, executive decision support, marketing and communication, and facility services team. And this entire panel discussion is going to be moderated by Jacxine Fernandes, the VP and Group CISO, Adani Group. Well, Jacxine possesses a tenured experience of over 20 years within the domains of cybersecurity, enterprise risk management, and business continuity across a diverse geographic expanse, namely the Middle East, Africa, and Asia. While he's been pivotal in the management of enterprise risk and cyber programs in the critical sectors such as defense, telecom, oil and gas, power, as well as logistics, amongst others. Thank you so much to our entire panel for joining us today. Over to you, Jacxine, to take it forward with your panel.
Thank you very much, Bhavna, and welcome to everybody and to my fellow panelists for being on this important session. Before we start off, I would like to just set the context and the stage over here for everybody. We've been hearing about it in a lot of forums. We've been hearing as CISOs, as cybersecurity professionals. We keep hearing about AI, and along with it, its twin brother, ML. Is it really its twin brother, or do we come to know the differences here? The fact of the matter is that there have been numerous reports which have been we have numerous reports which says that the security operations is going to employ AI, ML increasingly, in fact, in the high 80s or 90s. So we are looking at an explosion of AI in cybersecurity. Now, coming back to my panelists, I would like to start with Ashton. Ashton, before we get started on the application of AI tools, a lot of people are still unclear about the distinction. Do you want to help us out over here and the audience?
Thanks, Jacxine. And let me start with saying a good afternoon to all my fellow panelists. And many thanks to Presscon, Bhavna, and the team for having me invited over on this panel. I must start with saying that the views and opinions that I express here are in my personal capacity, actually, and may or may not be subscribed. So sometimes it gets confusing, and the lines are usually blurred between AI and ML as such. So I would say AI is more of a broad-based science, and artificial intelligence is just computers and machines being smart and doing things that once was thought to be capable by only human beings. So when I mean that, an AI in a way has been always present with us. It started off with a very simple computer program and a game that could be something like chess that the computer could play with an individual. to a game of tennis that we could play in the individual, where the computer always knew where we hit the ball. So that was in a way the nascent stages of AI. Now in today's age, it's become far more complex, but it's the broad-based view of a computer being smart. On the other hand, ML and machine learning is a subset and a part of AI, but it's very specific to machines being able to get access to the own data that they process and be able to continuously learn and improve basis on the data and the repetitions and the experience that they get from doing the same type of processes, the same sequence of events, etc., over and over again. So it is with every iteration, with every learning, with every repetition, and with every new data source that comes into the machine, it's able to learn more, become more intelligent. So that's the way I would classify the difference between AI and ML. I'm sure that in the conversations that we've had on the panel since morning, a few of our experts would have agreed and substantiated this as well.
Coming to you, Sakshi, how would you add to what Ashton has already said?
So I just say at least a few more examples. Say if you've ever browsed Netflix movie suggestions or told Alexa to order a pizza for you, you've probably interacted with the artificial intelligence more than you realize. So artificial intelligence is designed so that you don't realize that the computer is actually calling the shots. And then you have bots, which are text-based and powerful, but they have their limitations too. So I won't talk about the limitations or such, but at the far end of the spectrum is machine learning. And honestly, for me, I feel it's the most exciting areas of AI. So like a human, a machine would also retain the information and become smarter over time. While we do hear machine learning and artificial intelligence being used interchangeably, but I completely agree with my fellow panelists that the truth is that machine learning is actually a subset of AI. So machine learning is an approach to the science of artificial intelligence. So so these algorithms, again, like he said, they help, they adapt over time with data, and then they start acting more like a human. So it can also be thought of a type of a data mining, since it processes very large amounts of data.
Absolutely. And so what do you say about, in the current situation of, everybody loves to talk about the situation of COVID-19, but the fact of the matter is we've seen the global threat index climb tremendously in the last 10 months, 45% by some statistics. So what are these most severe cybersecurity challenges that we need to address with AI? Back to you, Sakshi.
Sure. So you're right, while the pandemic has proven to be a health and an economic challenge globally, it's equally proving to be a cybersecurity concern. And enterprises are particularly vulnerable during this time. So in my personal opinion, I feel combining the strength of artificial intelligence with cybersecurity, security professionals have additional resources to be able to defend their vulnerable networks and data from cyber attackers. So for now, I feel setting up firewall policies, managing backups, and such tasks require a professional, but AI will change this traditional approach. So I can summarize a few things that define the role of AI in cybersecurity. First and foremost, I feel this is going to change threat monitoring, detection, and response. So organizations will be able to monitor and respond to security incidents by using these advanced tools. Then the next gen firewalls, which we are already seeing, will have inbuilt machine learning technology that could find a pattern in the network packets and block them automatically if there is a threat. So some of the leading reports say that the natural language capabilities of AI will be used to understand the origin of cyber attacks, and this theory can be put in practice by scanning data across the internet. So again, threat detection is a big one. And lastly, I feel audit as well, because ML can machine learning increase the efficiency of configuration management, configuration audits, and other sorts of cybersecurity audits by removing human errors and biases. So these solutions can enhance the performance and reduce the risk.
Thank you very much, Sakshi. I think you have naturally taken us into our next area of question. Shadab, coming to you, like Sakshi mentioned, a multi-layered security in an organization, usually everybody thinks about a firewall. So Sakshi has touched on it briefly. Would you like to expand on, how machine learning is going to look at, how firewalls are incorporated into the environment?
Sure. So all the current firewalls that exist today, they work on a certain rule. If the IP address is this, you set a rule, and everything works on a set of rules, right? Now the problem with that is every few hours, days, weeks, months, you gotta keep on updating the rules. New rule set will be released by the OEM, and you keep on doing. This has been there for the last 20-25 years, right? Now, the point of machine learning is how do we automate? Because this is not a best use of a human to just go update the rules, download a new rule set and apply it, right? Now, how do we, how does the machine learns the new rules, right? With the new attack pattern that's coming up, right? Because at the end, right now, what a human is doing is saying, okay, these are new attack patterns, turning them into a rule that the firewall can understand and releasing them out. Now, if a machine could do it all by itself, it's far more easier and applicable. That's one piece of it. Second, now if we have all the logs on ourselves, we can be more productive in terms of what is the attack that's coming, the anomaly detection part of it, right? While it's all rule-based driven, it can be far more better with the data that's coming in, figuring out this is not the right set of data, right? That's where ML can actually help a lot of us in a lot of way of how do we do firewall or we deploy firewalls depending on the rules right now, which has been constant for a quite long time, right? And everyone says my rules are the most comprehensive rules, but I'm like, those are just rules, right? Like it's just that someone has to figure out, right? So and it's just not addition of like, okay, there's a risk score because if rule 1, 5, and 7 triggered, so the risk score becomes, so that's like a 0.1 version of machine learning with the OEMs came up with. But this is where like actually seeing the logs, understanding the pattern, figuring out the anomaly detection and calling it out, giving a recommendation, hey, right now you have a certain rule, like certain policies. If you change this policy, you're going to increase the coverage by this much, reduce the false positive by this much, and there's a chance of false negative by this much, right? Right now, we don't have that understanding. We apply a rule, we may kill off genuine people, or we may let a lot of bad people get in, right? Like if they can just tell, this is the coverage, reduce the coverage, reduce the false positive, or increase the coverage, increase the false positive. That's going to be really helpful of how do we go about putting firewall in place.
Thank you, Shadab. I'm sorry, but all I'm hearing is data. Are we getting more and more complex? You're just throwing a lot of it. I mean, we started from databases, moved to data marts, data stores, and now we have data lakes. Are we looking at the future of security being a data ocean now? Sakshi, what do you say to all this data that we have to start processing?
So, like all exponential curves, it's very hard to tell when a line that's slowly ticking upwards is going to skyrocket. And during the past few years, there have been a couple of factors that have led AI to become the next big thing. So the first of them is, of course, the huge amounts of data that is being created every minute. In fact, 90% of the world's data has been generated over the last 2 years only. So all thanks to advances in the progressing speeds, computers, and we can make sense of all this information much more quickly. And because of this, tech giants, venture capitalists have bought in AI and are infusing the market with cash and new applications. So I feel very soon AI will become a little less artificial and a lot more intelligent. And this is, of course, very, very relevant to the cybersecurity world as well.
Thank you, Sakshi.
Again,
Sorry,
Jacxine, if I can come
please.
in here. So,
Definitely.
Interesting comments by both Shadab and Sakshi. And I know we represent various industry segments on this panel here. So we basically go across industry segments. But the one common thread across all of the various sectors that we represent is actually data. Okay, so in a way, that's a common phenomenon across industries, be it the services industry, be it the manufacturing industry, be it a retail firm. It is going to be the only thing that is going to be common across it. And going forward, that will be the only treasure that we actually have in our setups. data, basically. So I've heard a few of other speakers and experts say data is the new oil. They compare that to the new oil. I don't really believe in that phenomenon because data on its own is something else. But that is going to be the only thing that's common. And we have to gear up to being able to use that data wisely and more intelligently. Having said that, we always run the risk of a lot of unwanted data being showcased as information, which is what we have to be aware of and be careful about.
Thank you, Ashton, for your thoughts. I would like to stay with you, Ashton, for the next question that I have, and Sakshi touched on it briefly, which was around NLP, natural language processing, which has shown great application in understanding humans. I mean, when we interact with, or even on a chat, we're not really certain, are we talking to another human being, or is it just another machine behind there? But are we expected to believe that it is going to understand attackers as well? And then Sakshi mentioned about looking at all of that data. We're talking about not just the surface web. We're talking about all these conversations that are happening on the dark web. So considering that, do you not wonder whether the bad guys are also going to try to hide better? Are we being a little naive to think that attackers will not use the same tools against the cybersecurity professionals? Your thoughts, Ashton?
So again, I believe in the concept of never say never. But as far as NLP and natural language processing goes, I still want to reserve my judgment on the same. Okay, so NLP per se is a great innovation. It is very nice from a business advancement perspective, from an understanding perspective. But right now, within the cybersecurity space, I don't see direct involvement of NLP per se. So it will not do something like web application firewall and intelligent firewall, etc., which will prevent a attack or will prevent a breach. Yes, it could have indirect benefits by way of being able to analyze millions of data across languages, across patterns, check around different data points, etc. But that's more or less an indirect way of intelligence gathering as such. Direct attacks cannot be at this point of time, I would say, prevented by simply by NLP or natural language processing. So just by being able to recognize voices, recognize speech, or translate languages, I don't think we'll be able to get into a direct method of being able to save ourselves from a possible cyber attack or a breach.
Thank you, Ashton. Shadab, I'll come to you with this question. And you, panelists, you can have differing opinions also on the matter. Shadab, we pay, I mean, some of us do pay money to these cyber threat intelligence companies to go and scour the dark web and tell us if they hear any chatter regarding us. Can't a machine do that? I mean, and also, are we trying to solve the cybersecurity professional shortage in the industry by employing all these stuff?
Sure. So before answering this, like, I'll just make a comment on your last question, right? Like, think of this, right? If I hand you a gun, you could help to save the country or fight for your own cause, but you have the gun. The gun right now would be NLP, right? Where depending what your mindset is, you got to use either way, right? While people on the other side, right, they are far more advanced than us. They want to be a step ahead, right? That's a typical reason why the exists of thief, police, or terrorism exists, because they find one way of a logical bypass. And again, it becomes very simple when someone does it. Like, hey, this was so simple and no one just thought of it, right? So they are definitely a step ahead. Will they use it? Definitely. There's no question about it, right? Probably will be the latter one to use it, understand it. They'll find a better way to communicate and do it, right? So for me, yes. So, and while for us, for a production purpose, NLP is still in nascent stages of how people use it, right? Because people are trying to say, how do we make fun of it, right? But bad criminals, they need one way where they can hide under the hood, put up a cloak, get into your system, do whatever they want, and come out. And you keep scratching your head of how do they go do it. That's one. On your second question, are we trying to address a shortage of security professionals? Yes and no. Uh, uh, there is a shortage, no question. There are a lot of people who are good with managing a tool, right? But the whole point of security is to just think out of the box, right? Because no one's gonna come with a bazooka in front of your gate, right? Like that's not how people would go. The point is there a small window open, right? Like where they can get in, and how do we put enough detection in place, right? And that's where can NLP help us? Yes. Is it already like? Can we use it to do what we are doing? Understand? They are probably doing discussing right now. Like people we pay to figure out data on the dark web, they're not making people sit and do it. This is not a humanly possible job, right? Uh, and if it is humanly possible, it's far more easier for you to pay than for them to pay, right? Because the size of what we are and what we're paying them, right? So they are just, the point is they've been pushed into a corner and they have thought smart about it and they have used it innovation to get to do things. What we are thinking is it's hard to do, it's not ROI. And that's where they are trying to make more sense and do things around this. So yes, it's one way to complement the shortage, but the point is we gotta find a way of how do we use it where we can do things faster and curb it better.
Here, as the moderator, Shadab, I'm going to challenge a bit on this. You clearly are not considering nation state actors. They can definitely pay better than us. So that's always going to be there.
I agree. So then we are stepping into another level of problems, right? Like,
Absolutely.
I was talking in generally like what all we face, but the moment we can come to state actors, then it's a different ball game. Then we are just how do we move around things? Yes,
absolutely. Coming to you, Sakshi, I mean, taking the conversation a bit into RPA. I mean, we know that businesses are deploying RPAs left, right, and center. Everybody wants a bot. Everybody wants to get rid of mundane tasks. I don't think we, as an industry, as cybersecurity professionals, we have reached a stage where we have secured all of these bots, and now we are already thinking about using them in cybersecurity full-fledged. Do you think we are running too fast?
See, AI is already a part of, cybersecurity solutions. It uses machine learning to, block 100 million spams a day. So it's developed the system to filter out these emails and offer a spam-free environment efficiently. Similarly, we know that Google is using deep learning AI on its video platforms, and the videos that are stored on the server are analyzed basis the content, and if anything suspicious is found, it's kind of pulled off. So there have been many numerous real life examples that actually I've seen many organizations have also been deploying RPA to reduce the level when human resource strength in their seeing many use cases of RPA in cybersecurity. So basically, RPA is just removing the strain of the competitive, repetitive tasks to help reduce one of the primary weak points in cybersecurity, which is human error. So attacks can of course happen anytime and location, and that's why human performance can't be the sole protector of your data. So I can talk about some use cases where RPA is being used in cybersecurity. The first one would be application inventory tracking. So RPA's advantages with application inventory tracking for your software and your product security. So these bots can be used to automate such applications in an enterprise. So I'm not saying that there is no need for humans to keep deploying bots, because they can be built to continuously discover and kind of update the necessary controls. Another one would be threat exposure. So RPAs can be leveraged to better understand the business vulnerabilities, and this all while focusing on the resulting solutions. So system or application administrators can be automatically notified as these solutions are put into play, and they can track the progress. So we can just free employees to focus on some of the more important developing tasks that can increase the growth. So that's where I feel RPA is a very important part of cybersecurity, which we're already seeing.
Bringing the question to you, Shadab, I wanted to check with you your thoughts on the RPA bit of it. Do you think are we moving too fast, or I think we are at the right cusp to take advantage? And some of the use cases that you can add to what Sakshi has mentioned.
Sure. Are we moving too fast? Is my voice okay? Yes. So are we moving too fast or too slow? It actually depends on the industry we all are in, right? And the answer could be different, right? If I talk about probably the new age startups, we are still working slowly. For maybe a very big corporation, the answer could be different, right? We are still banked like for new age. I'm going to answer on the behalf of new age startups because I've been working in them for a while. So for that, it becomes where they haven't done it enough to fast track it, right? That's one piece for it. That's my take on it, right? And I'm happy to disagree with other panelists on this. Apart from that, on the cases where RPA could help us, right? Remote time for detection, right, and mitigation. This is something where RPA can actually help us a lot, right? That's one major part where, apart from the general use cases, where if there is something like how do we put a SOP in place in an RPA where it takes all of it proper in a proper manner. That's one part of it. Then the other part, while the asset inventory is a really important thing, because if we don't know what all needs to be protected, right, you cannot secure them, right? And most organization that goes through a breach is one asset that was unsecured, right? So clearly there are big enough reasons where people, for X reason, right, because of the landscape they have, because of the attack surface area they have, they do not have a proper asset inventory, which is major, right? The other thing it can help us a lot is in terms of securing PII data, right? Like again, the point is, are people accessing it in a normal fashion or abnormal, or there is some anomaly, or there is some attack happening, right? That's another use case where we could think of how we could do it. We could also use RPA for governance, right? For any standards that we follow, right? How do we put, because let's say if we put from GDPR or ISO, whatever process that we put in place, how do we show and the longevity of the governance is, okay, Jacxine has done this, Sakshi has done this, and this is continuously happening. And this is not going to add anything to that growth of that person, right? Why not automate and have governance completely set as a part of RP itself, where you say, okay, these are things a human is not going to add any value. Any anomaly, definitely, it should be bubbled up and we should. So all those things where putting governance in place, inventory, patching, right? Like, again, if there is a patch, right now, all the IT teams push the patches remotely via whatever tool they're using. Like this is not the best use. Again, my take, not the best use of a human to just like click on 50 patches and say, right? RPA could do it properly, decently. See, okay, this is a night time, and I can push a OS critical patch now. Okay, big time. I should not be pushing a browser patch. So these are use cases where we can definitely do a lot more and a lot more faster, and we've been going slow. Is my take.
Thank you, Shadab. I think we can. We've heard about the applications more at an enterprise level for a lot of these things. I want to shift the focus a bit on endpoints now, because this is a question that we still grapple with as cybersecurity professionals today. We have a plethora of devices: your mobile phones, your iPads, your tablets, and your home laptops, your kids' laptops. Everything is connecting to enterprise applications and data. So, I mean, what should we continue to monitor these endpoints? How is AI going to work in all of this? Ashton, your thoughts on this, please?
So So that's a good question in today's context, Jacxine, especially with the pandemic and COVID hitting home. We basically almost overnight increased the surface area of attacks by having most of our staff, most of our employees now work remotely, work from home, work from anywhere. And we have, because we were not really prepared for the pandemic, we have actually gotten a lot of unsecured endpoints. There's a difference between one using their own personal device to connect to a network, or a device that is provided by the organization itself, which then has got all the security codes in place, everything properly taken care of. So those are the two aspects that we have: a large surface area of attack and unsecured endpoints that are now part of our network and have gone beyond the perimeter that we had of only the organization. And again, towards this, we have touched upon a few of the points in during the early part of our panel discussion. Firewalls and having AI and machine learning enabled firewalls is a way to be able to proactively monitor, proactively change the rules, and proactively monitor any endpoint that is accessing to our system. The second line of defense would be in terms of the various antiviruses that we have, not the static type of them, but machine learning enabled virus patches, etc. The third point, and again, I'm touching upon various aspects that we have already discussed, is in terms of the RPA mechanism that we had to do basically dynamic patching on our networks, as Shadab mentioned, to overnight any critical application, then actually freeze the entire network. Do not allow anyone to access it. Do not allow anyone to enter. Do not allow anyone to leave who are already in. Freeze the network, patch it up, maybe even do the on the move detection, etc. So these are various aspects that we have to actually consider in today's world, given the large surface area and the number of or the percentage of unsecured endpoints that we now have.
Thank you, Ashton. Sakshi, you want to contribute? How far should I go in trying to secure these endpoints?
So yeah, I completely kind of agree that endpoints remain vulnerable, and our job or security professionals' job has become an endless game of cat and mouse. Continuously we are pursuing invisible attackers that think out of box, and they outsmart most of the security systems. So no matter how efficient and nimble we security professionals are, the attackers are definitely very fast, and they're getting faster every day. So I personally feel that we need to apply automation, machine learning, and transaction tracing to kind of solve this problem. So we need tools that can generate a 360-degree map of our entire IT environment and data. And this should include the unknown unknowns. And this way, I'd add to what my co-panelist said, that we would be able to proactively monitor and predict the anomalies before they occur. So we need to be very, very predictive in our approach there. We'll also be able to automatically detect the changes that are happening on resource consumption and reduce the costs. So these are some of the areas where I feel we can, reduce the time that is currently being wasted on, manual processes like configurations and troubleshooting when it comes to endpoints.
Thank you, Sakshi. Just a slight trivia. We, as security professionals, have heard a lot of these unknown unknowns. You're a fan of a gentleman by the name of Donald Rumsfeld, because he coined it during the Iraq War siege. Just a little tidbit for the audience over there. Shadab, coming to you, what does the future look like? Sakshi mentioned a word, the machines are calling the shots. That's kind of scary. What's your thoughts?
Yeah. This is a time we gotta move and find a way of how do we take the exact little words, like how do we take this suppose each device, right? Whether it's kids, whether it's parents, whether it's spouse, whether it's those people who are not very tech savvy or security savvy, right? Now, when I say this score, I'm not looking at very this. I'm at point in a behavior pattern where I understand, let's say, Jacxine's way of we have baseline, and we know the Jacxine way of using this machine, whether it's a handheld device or a laptop or endpoint, it is this. Any anomaly to that is something that needs to be stopped, or there has to be a step up security or some alert raised somewhere, right? Now, and while we do all the EDR, and that's good, But the point is, we got to understand this is not the general pattern of what. So the risk scoring has to come from that. Okay, it's not a very traditional way of risk scoring. That's one piece, right? The other piece is the mobile devices, right? While endpoints, you could have a lot more things. There isn't much for handheld devices, right? For their behavior anomaly detection is going to be adding very important aspects, right? Like we're moving towards passwordless authentication, which is just saying, okay, because Shadab is holding a device in his left hand, and this is how he behaves. So this is Shadab, right? Now that's really important. So if this is a kid using my device, there has to be certain applicability that happens. It's someone else using my device. There has to be certain different applicability that needs to happen, right? Versus what I'm doing, right? So those are things that are yet to happen. Like there are few folks who are just still pitching it, but that's where we want to get ahead. Instead of saying, hey, we want better EDR, better SIEM, or with more machine learning, that's needed, no question on that. But we got to break that and say, okay, while this all happens, because there's going to be a continuing process, what's the next step we can do to see how do we secure it far easier and better while we keep on improving?
Thank you, Shadab. Ashton, your final thoughts. What's the future look like with AI?
So to pick up something that Sakshi said, defenders, protectors versus attackers. That cat and mouse game will always stay. Initially, we were within our network and within our perimeters, more like a castle and a moat. Now we are spread all over. Initially, it was more traditional in terms of attacks. We could see the physical enemy. Now it's more an unknown enemy, the unknown unknowns, and more to do with machines than humans. So that's the way we are progressing. I'm not sure what will come next, but right now we have to always stay ahead of the game. So we have always to be on our feet.
Thank you very much. Sakshi, any final thoughts, or we can move to closing comments?
So yeah, I feel like innovation is exploding every area of our lives, and cybersecurity continues to be a top priority in 2020, as it was in the past decade as well. So I just feel things might change. The prediction teams will go to the cloud, and there'll be an explosion of problems with the AI technology. So AI is definitely huge in 2020, and AI will need real security. So we will see a rise in the use of different types of attacks and to exploit the vulnerabilities in the AI systems. So yeah.
Thank you very much. I wanted to leave a thought, and panelists, if you can agree with me, one of the huge fears of AI usually tends to be, is it going to replace humans? But I always tell people, if your human activity and intellect is bound by repetitive tasks, yes, it's replacing you. But thankfully, human intellect is not bounded by repetitive tasks. So long as that is there, AI will not replace you. On a lighter note, what I can recollect is I had seen something with my spouse, which talked about a marriage bureau using AI ML to choose your life partner. In spite of looking at everything, what guarantees are there? None. It's the best AI ML cannot guarantee you a lifelong married life. That still is upon the humans. So with that, I would like to pass it back to Bhavna. Thank you very much for all of my panelists and all of the audience. Thank you, Bhavna.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jacxine, Sakshi, Shadab, and Ashton. Thank you so much for joining us on this panel, and definitely a great round of engagement happening whilst you were talking, and the delegates were sending us all their comments. So thank you once again, Jacxine, Sakshi, Ashton, and Shadab, once again for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. It was a pleasure talking to you guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.